Have you ever wondered what Pennywise really is? Because look, if you think he's just an evil clown with sharp teeth and a weird obsession with sewers, you'd better buckle up. The truth goes way deeper. What most people don't know, and almost no one talks about, is that Pennywise isn't just some creepy creation from Stephen King's imagination. He's the tip of a cosmic iceberg, part of a mythology that's far deeper and darker than it seems. One that ties together childhood fears, alien entities, and even a giant turtle that created the universe. Yep, you read that right, a cosmic turtle. But here's the thing, what was revealed in IT Chapter 2 changes everything you thought you knew about the dancing clown. The movie adaptations left out some huge details from the original book and from the 1990 miniseries, details that explain why Derry is the epicenter of evil and how the ritual of Chud, Native American legends, and even Stanley's tragic suicide are all connected in mind-blowing ways. In this video, we're taking a real journey through time and space, diving headfirst into the macroverse, the dimension where Pennywise was born, to find out who he really is, where he came from, why he returns every 27 years, and what makes him such a terrifying force. Get ready to question everything, feel a chill down your spine, and finally uncover the terrifying origin of Pennywise, the one the movies tried to water down. Strap in, because what's coming next might mess with your mind more than one of Pennywise's grotesque transformations. And I promise you, after this, you'll never look at a storm drain the same way again. Even though E.T. was based on Stephen King's massive novel, what we see on screen isn't exactly what's on the page. The movie adaptations, especially IT Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, had to trim and tweak things to fit into movie length and appeal to a wider audience. After all, turning a 1,000-plus page book filled with cosmic mythology, mental battles, and existential reflections into a couple of blockbusters, not exactly an easy task. A lot of the deeper stuff, like the cosmic turtle Maturin, was left out. The idea was to keep the focus on psychological horror and the clash between childhood and adulthood, without overwhelming people with metaphysical concepts. The 1990 miniseries took a similar route, though it was also limited by budget and special effects of the time. Still, it managed to preserve some key nuances, like the contrast between childhood fear and adult trauma, all told at a slower, more thoughtful pace. The newer movies went for a faster rhythm, modern visuals, and maximum impact. Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise is more monstrous and visually disturbing than Tim Curry's version, who leaned heavily on psychological discomfort. Both takes have their strengths, but it's clear the book offers a much richer, more philosophical experience. One of the most mind-blowing parts of the book that got glossed over in the films is the connection to what's called the macroverse, a higher plane of existence where cosmic beings like it, Pennywise, and Maturin the turtle live. This mythology reveals that the clown is just a form, a physical manifestation of something much bigger, an ancient alien entity that crash-landed on Earth like a meteor and settled beneath Derry. That twist changes everything. Pennywise isn't just a supernatural villain. He's the living embodiment of human fear. In the movies, he's reduced to just a monster that feeds on children's fear. Now, of course, adapting all of this would have required a way more philosophical film, one that takes time to explain existential concepts. So, the ritual of Chud, the mental battle between good and evil, and even the giant turtle were all either simplified or cut out completely. Instead, the films focus on what hits hardest: childhood trauma, facing fears, and those in-your-face jump scares Pennywise delivers with his grotesque transformations. It's not a bad take, but if you've read the book, you know the story goes way beyond what's shown on screen. And that's exactly what we're diving into next. It all begins in 2017, when we first meet the lovable and deeply traumatized Losers Club, a group of kids from Derry, each one dealing with their own personal demons, but united by something even scarier: the mysterious disappearance of local children and the chilling presence of a clown named Pennywise. Right from the start, it's clear this creature isn't just some freaky monster. He is fear, in its rawest form. And the worst part? Pennywise knows exactly how to tap into each kid's deepest trauma. Werewolves, lepers, blood pouring from the sink. He becomes whatever you're most afraid of. The first movie focuses on their childhood and how they come together to face the alien entity for the first time. It's here we get the iconic pact. If Pennywise ever comes back, they'll come back too. Sounds simple, right? But when you're dealing with a being that transcends physics, with powers like teleportation, invisibility, and shape-shifting, nothing is simple. They only win because they confront their fears head-on. And that's where the line between horror and personal growth starts to blur, a thread that runs through the entire story. At the same time, the movie plants the seeds for what blooms in IT, Chapter 2, the 27-year cycle that marks Pennywise's return. Derry itself starts to feel like a character, one that silently watches enabling the evil. People turn a blind eye to the horror, and that's no coincidence. Pennywise manipulates the town's collective mind, creating a kind of mental fog. That psychological manipulation is one of his most terrifying powers, even more than his supernatural ones. Every appearance is a twisted masterclass in cosmic horror, wrapped in a creepy prank. The 2017 movie ends with a bittersweet note, a temporary win, and a promise to return if the evil does. It's a reminder that no matter how brave we are, our fears never fully disappear. They just go dormant. Just like Pennywise, who goes into hibernation for another 27 years, trauma lies in wait, hidden in the dark corners of memory. And that's where It, Chapter 2 picks up, bringing the losers back together, now as adults, to face not just the creature, but everything they left behind. 27 years later, the cycle starts again. Children begin disappearing in Derry, and the telltale signs of Pennywise's return show up. That's when Mike Hanlon, the only loser who stayed in town, makes the dreaded calls. One by one, he brings the old friends back together. Each one reacts differently: confusion, fear, denial, and a deep, forgotten pain. But it's in this reunion that we see just how deeply those childhood scars still run. Each of them carries wounds that never really healed. Bill is still haunted by his brother's death. Beverly's trapped in a cycle of abuse, mirroring her violent past. Eddie's stuck in his shell of anxiety and hypochondria. Coming back to Derry forces them to revisit not just the place but everything they buried in childhood. And Pennywise, the twisted empath that he is, feels it all. He knows exactly where to poke. It's like the town itself has been frozen in time, just waiting for their return to finish what they started. That Chinese restaurant scene? It makes one thing crystal clear. Even as adults, they're still the same losers, fragile, unsure, but also hiding a dormant strength. It's a powerful moment, mixing nostalgia and pure psychological terror, especially with those fortune cookies turning into hideous little monsters. Pennywise wastes no time testing each of them. And even though time has passed, the bond between them, invisible but real, begins to reawaken. That connection and genuine love becomes their greatest weapon against the evil. The crazy part is that even after all they've been through in life, they're still vulnerable to the same fears. Pennywise takes full advantage of that. He shapeshifts into their worst nightmares, reminding them, and us, that fear doesn't age. It just changes form. And maybe that's one of the most powerful messages of the entire story. Sometimes in order to move forward, you've got to go back, face what's hiding under the bed, or lurking in the sewer just around the corner. The origin of Pennywise is, without exaggeration, one of the most fascinating and least understood parts of IT. Forget the idea that he's just a creepy clown. That form? It's just a shell, something chosen specifically to lure kids since their fear has a special flavor to this creature. According to IT, Chapter 2, Pennywise's true nature is that of an alien entity that crash-landed on Earth millions of years ago inside a meteor. This happened long before humans ever set foot in Derry, and ever since, he awakens every 27 years to feed. It's basically a twisted ritual of cosmic rebirth. The first to come into contact with this entity were the Native Americans. They witnessed something monstrous rising from the crater left by the impact. Oral stories describe it as a winged beast, or a giant bird-like figure, but always with the power to cause paralyzing fear. They tried to contain it using an ancient mystical ritual, the ritual of Chud, a spiritual battle where victory isn't about brute strength, but about mental endurance. The idea is that the victim's mind must force the entity to play by their rules. But the brutal truth? Every one of those native warriors died trying. This cosmic version of the story is rarely explored in film adaptations, mostly because it's so metaphorical and complex. In reality, Pennywise is just one manifestation of the Thing, an entity from the macroverse, a dimension outside our physical reality, and his true form, completely incomprehensible to the human mind. The closest we get in the films is that giant spider, but even that's just an illusion, shaped by the limits of our understanding. Stephen King uses this idea to symbolize fear as something ancient, unknowable, and always lurking. Another crucial detail, Within this macroverse, Pennywise has a rival, Maturin, the legendary cosmic turtle representing creation, balance, and wisdom. Maturin is said to have literally vomited the universe into existence, yes, really, and subtly tries to guide the losers against the creature. This part was cut from the movie to avoid seeming too over the top, but in the book, it's very present. Knowing that Pennywise is part of a bigger conflict between cosmic forces of good and evil makes everything more epic. It shows that Derry isn't just cursed. It's the battleground of a war that stretches across time, space, and imagination itself. One of the creepiest scenes in IT. Chapter 2 happens when Beverly Marsh returns to the home she lived in as a child. There, she meets the eerie Mrs. Kirsch, a seemingly sweet old lady, but like everything in Derry, she hides horror behind a smile. Their conversation starts off strange and tense until the old woman mentions something bizarre. She claims to be the daughter of Robert Gray, a circus clown. That name should sound familiar. Pennywise introduces himself as Pennywise the Dancing Clown, and his full name, Pennywise Robert Bob Gray. Then the house becomes a living nightmare. Mrs. Kirsch transforms from a gentle old woman into a grotesque, misshapen monster in one of the film's most terrifying sequences. But the question lingers, was that circus story real, or just another illusion crafted to mess with Beverly's mind? After all, Pennywise has the power to twist reality, create hallucinations, and access his victims' memories. The circus narrative might be a mental trap, designed to hit Beverly's emotional weak spots and reignite the fear that's haunted her since childhood. It's important to understand that Pennywise doesn't just scare people, he breaks them emotionally. He knows Beverly has a history of abuse and associates male figures with pain and fear. The image of the clown as a father figure, or any sort of masculine authority, digs deep into her psyche, and that's where psychological horror and supernatural terror merge. Mrs. Kirsch becomes a symbol of distorted memory and lingering threat, as if Beverly's past is literally waiting for her, hiding in the shadows. Did Robert Gray actually exist? We may never know. Maybe he really was a circus clown who mysteriously vanished in Derry, or maybe he never existed at all, just another layer of illusion created by Pennywise, who can manipulate memories, sensations, and childhood fears with surgical precision. What's clear is that the line between reality and Pennywise's twisted creations becomes more and more blurred, and that reinforces a central theme of the story. When you revisit your past, not everything that seems familiar is safe, especially in Derry. Now let's talk about the ritual of Chud, one of the most symbolic and mysterious elements in IT, Chapter 2. Inspired by Native American traditions, this mystical ritual is meant to trap or defeat the entity known as Pennywise. According to Mike, the natives performed the ritual long ago using symbolic objects, called tokens, tied to childhood memories. The losers collect these tokens and perform the ritual as a kind of emotional and spiritual exorcism. It's a mental battle, almost like a duel of wills, where fear can be both a weapon and a downfall. During the ritual, each member burns their token, a symbolic act of letting go of the past. The idea is to confront the alien entity with the truth of its own insignificance, forcing it to reveal its true form. But something goes wrong. Mike had hidden a critical piece of information. The Native Americans who tried the ritual all died. Why? Because the ritual only works if you have complete faith, and the losers were fractured, insecure, divided, lacking the conviction needed to defeat a creature that feeds on fear and doubt. That failure highlights something important. Pennywise isn't defeated with brute force or magic tricks. He's beaten with self-acceptance, courage, and healing. Only when the characters acknowledge their fears and refuse to let them win do they truly become powerful. In that sense, the ritual is more than just a supernatural event. It's a metaphor for growing up. It shows us that childhood trauma doesn't simply fade with time. It needs to be faced, understood, and burned, just like those tokens. Only then does the past lose its grip on the present. Even though the movie simplifies the ritual of Chud, the book dives much deeper. In King's version, the final battle happens in the macroverse, with Bill entering a mental war with the creature and receiving help from the cosmic turtle, Maturin. The film left this out, probably because it's hard to portray, but the core idea remains. To defeat external monsters, you first have to conquer the ones inside, and that's where the beauty lies. The ritual didn't fail because it was done wrong. It failed because the group wasn't ready, which of course makes the final showdown even more powerful. After all the losses, hallucinations, and emotional battles, the moment of truth arrives, the final confrontation with Pennywise. But this isn't your typical showdown. There are no weapons, no superpowers. What they carry with them are scars, memories, and a strength they didn't know they had, the ability to overcome fear. Here's the turning point. Pennywise, as grotesque and powerful as he appears, only has control over those who believe in his threat. Once the losers understand this, the creature begins to weaken. They decide to do the opposite of what they've always done. Instead of running, they stand their ground and fight back with words. That's right, words. They confront him. They call him out. They strip away the illusion, telling him he's nothing but a lie, a pathetic creature hiding behind masks and illusions. And that's the final blow. Without fear to feed on, the cosmic entity begins to shrink. Its true form, a grotesque blend of giant spider and childlike eyes, becomes vulnerable like never before. The scene where they defeat Pennywise is both brutal and symbolic. They rip out his heart and crush it, together, a powerful act of unity and release. And in that moment, the traumas that haunted them for decades begin to lose their hold. Pennywise wasn't invincible. He was just a magnified reflection of the pain they'd carried since childhood. By destroying him, they didn't just kill a monster. They shattered the distorted image they had of themselves. In that instant, it's like each of them is freed from the invisible prison they'd been dragging with them ever since Derry. The main message here is crystal clear. Fear only has power when we let it. Pennywise, with all his supernatural abilities, shape-shifting, teleportation, and invisibility, was ultimately defeated by a group of ordinary people who chose to break free. And honestly, that's more terrifying and more beautiful than any horror scene, because it shows us that the real monsters live inside us, and facing them can be way harder than dealing with some alien clown laying eggs in a sewer. The death of Stanley Uris at the beginning of IT, Chapter 2, caught everyone off guard. He was the quietest one, the most rational of the group, but his absence, as painful as it is, carries deep meaning. Stanley takes his own life after learning that Pennywise has returned. At first it feels like an act of fear, even cowardice. But the letter he leaves behind completely changes that perception. He didn't abandon his friends. He did what he believed was necessary to give them a real chance at defeating the alien entity. In his letter, Stanley admits he knew that fear would paralyze him again, just like it did when they were kids, and that fear could put the whole group in danger. By removing himself from the equation, he believed he was making the group stronger. An extreme choice, no doubt, but one made out of love and courage. It's a heartbreaking moment, because it shows how the traumas of the past still shape decisions in the present. Even though he's not physically present in the final fight, Stanley is a key part of the victory. His action makes us reflect on the many faces of bravery, some loud, others quiet, and some final. The movie's epilogue is soft but powerful. We see the losers moving on with their lives. Their scars begin to fade, literally, as if defeating Pennywise also erased the emotional wounds. Bill begins writing again. Ben and Beverly finally allow themselves to feel the love they had buried for years. Richie visits the bridge where he carved his initials next to Eddie's, a gesture full of grief, nostalgia, and acceptance. Each of them finds a new path, carrying the memories, but free from the paralyzing grip of fear. Pennywise is gone, but the real victory? It was internal. And here's the most beautiful part of this journey. The childhood fears that once defined them have become nothing more than memories. They still exist, of course, but they've lost their power. That's the true message of IT. The horror is real, yes, but it can be faced. It can be defeated. Whether it's a cosmic clown, a buried trauma, or a wound that never healed. What defines us isn't what haunts us, and it's how we choose to respond. And in that sense, the losers weren't really losers at all. They were just waiting for the right moment to be free. One of the most curious and maybe frustrating things for fans of the book is how the cosmic mythology was nearly erased from the movie adaptation. In Stephen King's universe, Pennywise isn't just some evil monster. He's an ancient alien entity from the Macroverse, a dimension inhabited by beings as old as time itself. And among those beings, one stands out as the direct opposite of the Thing, the legendary cosmic turtle, Maturin. Yes, a turtle who vomited the universe into existence. It sounds absurd, and that's exactly where King's symbolic genius shines. Maturin represents wisdom, creation, and harmony. He doesn't fight directly. Instead, he guides the losers through moments of intuition and clarity. In the book, it's Maturin who appears to Bill during a trance-like state, helping him understand the ritual of Chud and how to confront the creature. In the movie, none of that made it in. The filmmakers chose to cut Maturin and the Macroverse entirely, trying to keep the story grounded in human trauma and emotional tension. But in doing so, they left an entire layer of the story behind. That cut also removed elements like the deadlights, the true form of Pennywise's essence so overwhelming it drives people insane if they look directly into it. In the book, the deadlights are visible inside the creature and cause Beverly to enter a catatonic state. In the movies, we catch a quick glimpse, but there's no real explanation. By skipping these parts, the filmmakers delivered a more straightforward story, but one that's less rich, less philosophical. The result? A movie more digestible for general audiences, but one that lacks the depth of cosmic horror the book explores so beautifully. Still, there were a few subtle nods left in, like the toy turtle in the classroom, or the line, "Turtles aren't that cool," little Easter eggs for the sharp-eyed readers. But it's clear that the Pennywise we see on screen, as terrifying as he is only a shadow of the near-divine, or demonic, being King wrote. The choice to keep the story more grounded isn't necessarily wrong, but it leaves you feeling like there's so much more hiding beneath the clown makeup, and that more can completely change how you see this story. One of the most intriguing and unforgettable aspects of IT is the famous 27-year cycle. And no, it's not just a random number. Pennywise, the fear-eating creature, reawakens in Derry every 27 years to begin another round of terror, disappearances, and death. This pattern is like an evil clock ticking away beneath the town. And the scariest part? No one seems to notice. It's like Derry is in on it. A silent accomplice, forgetting everything the moment Pennywise goes back to sleep. Which begs the question, just how far does this cosmic entity's influence reach? Stephen King created this cycle as a powerful metaphor. The number 27 might symbolize how long it takes for buried trauma to surface again. In 27 years, a child becomes an adult, but childhood fears? They often stay buried, quietly waiting for their moment. Pennywise is a mirror of that. He comes back when the pain is repressed, when the wounds are unhealed. It's as if he knows exactly when the past is ready to strike back. And Derry? Derry stays frozen in that pattern, repeating the cycle like a curse. The book shows how this pattern has repeated for centuries. Unexplained massacres, serial tragedies, violent events, always spaced 27 years apart. The movies hint at it, with newspaper clippings and historical records, but never really dive in. Yes, the creature sleeps, but the town is never truly free. The evil just adapts. It hides in cracks, alleys, abandoned homes, and when the cycle restarts, it all returns. New faces, new victims, same ancient fear. This time pattern also works as a warning. How many things do we bury in life, thinking they'll never come back? Pennywise's 27-year cycle isn't just about a monster returning. It's about the cyclical nature of fear and pain, and the responsibility we all have to break that cycle. Only awareness, confrontation, and real growth can break destructive patterns. In the loser's case, it took them 27 years to finally see it, to look back without shaking, and to look forward with courage. But was the cycle truly broken? When someone says it has over 1,000 pages, they're not exaggerating. It's literal. Stephen King's novel is a psychological, emotional, and symbolic brick of terror. But don't be fooled. Every page is a vital part of a deep, layered puzzle. The narrative moves back and forth between the loser's childhood and adulthood, slowly revealing the horrors they faced in Derry. Reading the book feels like digging through a psychological tunnel. The deeper you go, the darker and more fascinating it gets. And unlike the movies, there are no shortcuts, just total immersion. The book's richness and detail is what makes it so powerful. Pennywise isn't just a scary villain. He's a living metaphor for childhood fear, trauma, and the things left unspoken in families, schools, and relationships. The chapters pull you into the characters' minds with such depth, it's impossible to walk away unchanged. Bill's grief over Georgie's death, Beverly's abuse, Mike's experience with racism, it's all laid bare, raw, real, unfiltered, and with a complexity that no film adaptation could ever fully capture. That's exactly why the book works as a real portal for anyone wanting to understand where fear comes from. Not just the characters' fears, but our own. It's a story about childhood, yes, but also about abandonment, addiction, insecurity, death, and even supernatural elements like the Macroverse and the eternal battle between an alien entity and the cosmic turtle Maturin. These are themes that demand attention and imagination. But for those who dive in, there's an entire universe waiting, way beyond what a simple horror movie can offer. The Clown is just the beginning. The real horror lives between the lines. If you've never read the book, maybe now's the time to take the plunge. It's not a fast read, and it's definitely not always comfortable, but it's incredibly rewarding. And if you've already seen the films, reading the book adds a whole new layer to the experience. You start filling in the gaps left on screen, understanding the weight of the symbols, and seeing Pennywise with new eyes, not just as a monster, but as a reflection of everything we try to avoid. And by the time you reach the final page, more than 1,000 in total, you realize what's truly terrifying about IT isn't the clown, it's what he awakens inside of us. Pennywise isn't just ancient, he's primordial. The creature Stephen King describes was already on Earth long before humans ever took their first steps. According to the book, it arrived millions of years ago inside a meteor, bringing with it a corrupting energy that manipulates, infects, and feeds on fear. In Derry, that evil took root, the perfect place to hibernate and return in cycles. It's as if the land itself was shaped around the creature, cursed from the very beginning. And that might explain why Derry is so disturbingly indifferent to horror. Just think, while civilizations were rising and falling, Pennywise was asleep, waiting for the perfect moment to wake up again. This gives the character a kind of mythological weight, as if he's a force of nature, a cosmic being that watches humanity the way a farmer watches livestock. He doesn't care about morality or logic. Time means nothing to him, and that makes everything around him feel fragile, temporary. The movies briefly touch on this idea, but in the book it's fully explored, transforming the story into something much bigger than a clown that scares kids. Knowing that Pennywise has been on Earth for so long helps us understand that he's more than a monster. He's a kind of ancestral shadow of the human subconscious. He adapts to the times, changing shape based on the fears of each generation. To Native Americans, he may have appeared as a winged demon. To others, a sea creature, a ghost, a beast. But over time he realized something. The image of a clown caused a very specific kind of fear, and that's the form he chose to stick with. The makeup, the frozen smile, the soulless eyes, all became the perfect disguise for something that has no true form. This ancient timeline forces us to think beyond the obvious. If Pennywise has been here for millions of years, what else might be hiding beneath our feet, just waiting to wake up? The macroverse could be closer than we think. And maybe Derry isn't the only place touched by its influence. Maybe it's just one of many corrupted by something greater. Pennywise didn't simply come from space. He's part of the invisible fabric of the universe, a living force of chaos. And once you start thinking that way, time, which we once saw as our ally, becomes just another piece on his board. When we add up everything shown in both films, It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, the full story easily crosses 4.5 hours. And that's without counting deleted scenes, bonus content, or the countless discussions the story sparked off screen. Even with all that time, it's impossible to capture the depth of King's original novel. What the movies do is condense the essentials: the battle against fear, the weight of childhood trauma, and the power of true friendship as a tool for healing. The essence is there, but Stephen King's universe is much bigger. In about 13 minutes of condensed content, it's possible to present the entire core story to someone who's never read the book or seen the films. It sounds short, but with the right approach, a summary can still hit hard emotionally and preserve the story's impact. The goal isn't to replace the full experience, it's to spark curiosity, to show that there's so much more behind the clown than just jump scares and screams, that he represents something much deeper, the embodiment of human fear, unresolved childhood pain, and cycles that refuse to break. The movie adaptations are no doubt impressive in scale. The special effects, the cast, the detailed set pieces, all of it contributes to an immersive modern experience. But some fans still miss the subtle horror of the 1990 miniseries, which despite technical limitations, delivered a more concentrated dose of psychological terror. The 90s version leaned more on atmosphere and unsettling silence than CGI monsters. Both adaptations have their place, and it's fascinating to see how the same story can be told in such different ways, evolving with the fears of each generation. And even with over 270 minutes of screen time, gaps still remain. And that's where analysis videos and deep dive explainers come in. They help stitch things together, interpret symbolic scenes, and bring back key elements like the macroverse maturin and the full scope of Pennywise's powers, astral projection, invisibility, and emotional manipulation. The story of IT isn't just something you watch, it's something you digest, reflect on, and revisit. And the deeper you go, the more you realize that fear is only the beginning. When we think about Pennywise's terrifying origin, most of us picture that iconic image, the clown lurking in a storm drain, yellow eyes glowing in the dark. But that's just the surface. Pennywise is the physical manifestation of something far older and far more terrifying, known only as the Thing, an alien entity that crashed into Derry millions of years ago. This creature feels no empathy, no compassion, no pity. It feeds on fear, especially the fear of children, because it's more pure, more intense, and in a way, more delicious. In Stephen King's novel, this entity came to Earth by accident, carried on a meteor like some ancient cosmic virus. And Derry? It became the perfect breeding ground, a town with a long history of unexplained violence, disappearances, and generational tragedy. Pennywise hides beneath it all like a parasite, seeping into the atmosphere, influencing the people. That's why so many awful things happen in Derry while everyone looks the other way. The evil isn't just in the clown, it's in the air, the sewers, the walls. It's woven into the town itself. The clown form was just one of many faces the creature has used over time. Throughout the centuries, it's appeared as beasts, demons, massive animals. But it learned that clowns, of all things, had a uniquely terrifying effect on kids. What's supposed to be fun became nightmare fuel. And that's when Pennywise locked into the image. But his true form goes way beyond that, so grotesque, so incomprehensible, that the human mind literally can't process it. In the films, it's symbolized as a giant spider, but even that's just a stand-in. At its core, Pennywise isn't a creature, he's a concept, fear made flesh. This chilling origin changes how we see him completely. He's not a traditional villain, not a monster with a clear goal. He's raw fear, a reflection of our deepest, darkest traumas. And more than that, a reminder that the most terrifying things don't always need logic. They just are, hidden, waiting. And when they rise, they take the shape that paralyzes us the most. That's what Pennywise is. A distorted mirror of the human soul, with sharp teeth and a smile that was never meant to be friendly. Most people don't realize this, but Pennywise didn't just come from space. The truth is way weirder. He came from another dimension known as the macroverse, a realm beyond human understanding where time, space, and logic work completely differently. It's home to cosmic entities with unimaginable powers, and Pennywise, or rather, the Thing, is one of them. That's why his abilities defy all explanation. Teleportation, invisibility, astral projection, mind control. He's not just supernatural, he's outside reality as we know it. The macroverse is one of Stephen King's boldest creations, appearing in multiple works and connecting universes and characters. Within this dimension, Pennywise is a force of chaos, a being that feeds on the energy of fear. It has no fixed body, no defined gender, and its very existence defies sanity. In our world, it takes on shapes that the human mind can barely tolerate, and even then, with intense terror. But its true form, the infamous deadlights, is so devastating that to look directly at them can drive a person completely insane. This extra-dimensional origin gives the story a cosmic horror vibe, much like H.P. Lovecraft's work, where the fear comes not just from the monster Karn but from the unknown itself. Pennywise doesn't want to take over the world or kill out of cruelty. He exists to feed, like a predator following instinct, and that makes him even more terrifying. No mercy, no logic, no redemption. He exists outside of morality, and that alone breaks every traditional horror villain mold. He's not just a villain, he's a force of nature from a universe that doesn't understand empathy. His presence in our world is a cosmic accident, but the impact, catastrophic. His arrival in Derry was like a cancer invading a healthy body. From that moment on, he bonded with the darkest parts of the human mind. Every 27 years, he wakes up hungry, reshaping his form and strategy to match the fears of that era. This origin, from a dimension beyond our own, expands it far beyond the limits of horror. It reminds us that evil doesn't always come from here. Sometimes, it travels from the cold, empty corners of the universe. Pennywise isn't just visually disturbing, he's a supernatural entity, armed with a terrifying arsenal of powers. One of his most iconic is shape-shifting. He can become anything, literally anything, that represents a person's deepest fear. From a diseased leper, to a mummy, to a massive spider with a gaping upside-down mouth. It's like he can read minds and instantly choose the most effective way to break you. And worst of all, he enjoys it. It's not enough to scare. He needs to watch his victims collapse in fear. And that's just the beginning. Pennywise can teleport, appearing and vanishing in seconds, anywhere in Derry. His movements defy the laws of physics as if reality bends around him. He can also become invisible to adults, which explains why so many tragedies happen right in front of people without any reaction. Only children can see him clearly, which strengthens the idea that childhood fear is both his weakness and his favorite flavor. He literally lives in the space between reality and imagination. Another terrifying ability is astral projection. Pennywise can invade minds, cause vivid hallucinations, manipulate memories, and even create alternate realities inside someone's subconscious. It's like he turns your brain into his personal haunted house. That makes fighting him even harder. It's not just physical, it's a battle for sanity. He also has rapid regeneration, which explains why he survives so many physical attacks. Stabbings, bullets, explosions, none of it truly destroys him, because what keeps him alive isn't his body, it's fear. And then, of course, there are the deadlights, his purest, most dangerous form. A cosmic light so incomprehensible that it can kill or drive you mad the instant you see it. That alone would make him an unbeatable villain. But what makes Pennywise truly terrifying is that he knows exactly what he's doing. He's smart, strategic, fully aware of his power. He doesn't act like a beast. He manipulates, calculates, chooses. And that's why he ranks among the most disturbing villains in literature and cinema. Because really, how do you fight a creature that knows your worst nightmares better than you do? Amid all this cosmic chaos, one surprising figure appears. Maturin, the cosmic turtle. If you thought Pennywise's only enemy was the Losers Club, think again. Maturin is basically the opposite of the Thing, a force of balance, wisdom, and creation. According to the book, it was Maturin who vomited the universe into existence. Yes, it sounds absurd, but within Stephen King's mythology, it makes sense. This ancient turtle drifts through the macroverse, watching existence unfold with serenity, stepping in only when absolutely necessary. In the book's final showdown, it's Maturin who guides Bill through the mental battle against Pennywise during the ritual of Chud. He doesn't fight directly. He doesn't step into the physical world, but he serves as a mentor, a spiritual guide, a symbol that good does exist even when it's silent. Maturin represents consciousness, the force that grounds us in moments of doubt. His presence is subtle, but crucial, like that quiet voice inside your head when everything seems lost. And this contrast between Pennywise's destructive chaos and Maturin's calm wisdom gives the story a philosophical depth rarely seen in horror. Sadly, the movie adaptation left Maturin out. Maybe the idea of a giant space turtle was considered too much for general audiences. But readers of the book know how important he is. Maturin isn't just a quirky side character. He's a cornerstone of IT's mythology. He proves that Pennywise isn't all-powerful, that even in the face of ancient godlike evil, there's always a counterforce, always something that pushes back, and that brings just a flicker of hope, a glimmer of light, in a world where fear seems to rule. The beauty of Maturin lies in the fact that he's not a warrior, he's a symbol. While Pennywise feeds on fear, Maturin represents knowledge, patience, and time. He's the eternal observer, the reminder that the universe is bigger than our nightmares. Even though he doesn't appear in the movies, his spirit is present throughout the character's journey. It's his voice we hear in moments of courage. He's the quiet strength when things fall apart. And he's the proof that even in the darkest stories, there's always the possibility of balance. Because wherever fear exists, there's always the chance for light. Not all of IT's horror came from Stephen King's imagination. Part of what makes Pennywise so disturbing is that his creation was inspired by something horrifyingly real: the serial killer John Wayne Gacy. In the 1970s, Gacy shocked America when he was arrested for murdering over 30 young men and boys. What made it even more twisted? He dressed up as a clown for children's parties, under the name Pogo the Clown. That image of a seemingly normal man hiding a monster behind a painted smile was one of the sparks that led King to create Pennywise. What King did was take that real-world nightmare and crank it up to cosmic horror levels. If Gacy was human evil at its rawest, then Pennywise is evil in its most primordial, alien, incomprehensible form. But the connection between them is crystal clear. A clown, something meant to be safe, innocent, joyful, used to represent the exact opposite. That messes with a very specific fear, that what's supposed to protect us might actually harm us. And that psychological tension is what makes Pennywise so effective, on screen and on the page. Choosing a clown as the disguise, pure genius. Clowns are walking contradictions, oversized smiles, erratic behavior, exaggerated colors. So when that image is flipped into horror, it hits hard. No wonder so many people develop coulrophobia, fear of clowns, after seeing IT. Pennywise doesn't scare just because he's ugly or monstrous. He terrifies because he betrays something that was supposed to bring joy. A predator disguised as a joke. That real-life inspiration gives the story a disturbing edge of truth. It reminds us that even if Pennywise is an alien from the macroverse, there's a lot of him in our reality. And maybe that's the most chilling part. Because in the end, the longest-lasting kind of fear doesn't come from space. It comes from right here, hiding in plain sight. Stephen King has always had a gift for turning real-life horrors into literary monsters. And with Pennywise, he did it masterfully, reminding us that sometimes the scariest kind of fear is the one that could actually be real. One of Pennywise's most striking abilities is his power to take on any form, and he does it like no one else. The creature morphs into whatever it needs to become in order to trigger maximum fear in its victims. In Eddie's case, for example, he appears as a grotesque leper, a living symbol of Eddie's hypochondria. For Richie, he becomes a melting-eyed zombie clown. For Beverly, fear erupts as blood gushing from unexpected places, a clear metaphor for her chaotic transition into adolescence. Pennywise doesn't just scare, he personalizes the terror. That's what makes him such an effective enemy. He has no fixed form, and that makes him impossible to predict. Whatever scares you the most, that's what he becomes. He's shown up as a mummy, a wolf, a giant cockroach with an upside-down mouth, a haunted painting, a dead child. And each form is more grotesque than the last. He knows how to use visuals, sound, space, and even silence as tools of torture. He doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. He builds the fear, layer by layer. And when the victim is at their most vulnerable, that's when he strikes full force. But this isn't just a flashy horror trick. It's a powerful metaphor. Fear looks different for everyone. What paralyzes one person might not faze another. And Pennywise knows this. He becomes a twisted reflection of each victim's subconscious. His ability to manipulate reality and craft custom horrors shows just how deeply he understands the human mind, or worse, how much he enjoys messing with it. He turns every trauma, every insecurity, into a weapon. He feeds not just on fear, but on humiliation. Pennywise's shape-shifting also highlights his role as a universal symbol of fear. He's not just a creature hiding in the sewers. He's what hides inside us. Our traumas, our secrets, our anxiety, all of that can become his next form. That's why he never scares the same way twice. He watches you, learns you, molds himself to you. And then, when you least expect it, there he is. Fake smile, hungry eyes, and the exact shape of your worst nightmare. One of the most fascinating, and least discussed, aspects of Pennywise is his undefined gender. Sure, in the films he's portrayed as male, deep voice, masculine appearance, but in truth, he's far beyond anything we'd recognize as human. In Stephen King's book, there's a passage revealing that Pennywise lays eggs, meaning the creature has a reproductive capacity. That would suggest that, biologically, it is female, or at least something completely outside our gender norms. But that doesn't mean Pennywise is a woman. It just means Pennywise isn't anything we can clearly define. As a cosmic entity, he doesn't have to stick to human concepts like male or female. He simply takes on whatever form is most effective at manipulating and terrifying. If a child is afraid of a female figure, he becomes that. If the fear is something monstrous or abstract, he'll match it. He's fluid, shapeless, amorphous, literally, the embodiment of fear's flexibility. This gender ambiguity reinforces the idea that Pennywise isn't a creature with an identity. He's a mirror for other people's fear. He doesn't need a personality in the human sense. His essence is shaped by the traumas and emotions of his victims, both physically and symbolically. He might appear with a woman's voice, or as an old lady, like Mrs. Kirsch, and in the next moment, morph into a multi-limbed monster with fangs. There's no true form we'd ever understand, and certainly no fixed gender. In the end, this fluidity just reinforces what Pennywise really is. Not a creature, but a concept. A fear that adapts to fit the moment. No rules, no limits. He can be everything, or nothing, and that makes him even more dangerous, because you never know what form he'll take next. So really, it doesn't matter if the clown is he or she. Pennywise is an it, the thing, and maybe it's exactly because he doesn't fit into any box that he stays with us in ways no traditional monster ever could. The cinematic evolution of Pennywise is a masterclass in how horror changes with time and technology. In 1990, the classic TV miniseries introduced us to Tim Curry's version, a psychologically creepy, subtly unsettling Pennywise. He wasn't grotesque to look at, but his behavior, that mocking tone, the slow, drawn-out laugh, all of it made your skin crawl. It was the kind of fear that creeps in slowly and sticks around. Simple makeup, classic costume, but the impact, lasting. Then came the 2017-2019 films, with Bill Skarsgård's darker, more visceral take. This Pennywise had misaligned eyes, a broken voice, and unnatural movements, almost like a predator pretending to be human. With heavier makeup, monstrous teeth, and digital effects, his presence was disturbing from the very first scene. A visually terrifying Pennywise enhanced by modern tech. The creature's transformations became more dramatic, making the horror more graphic and more dynamic. Despite their visual differences, both versions share some core elements. They both tap into childhood fears, past trauma, and psychological manipulation as their main weapons. The difference is how that fear is delivered. The miniseries leans into slow, creeping dread. The films go for high-impact visuals and jump scares. It's a generational thing. The 90s favored suggestion while the 2010s favored spectacle. Neither version is better. Each reflects the style and expectation of its time. What's fascinating is how both Pennywises still work. That proves the fear isn't in the makeup. It's in the idea behind the character. A shape-shifting fear that can wear any face. Even nostalgia. For those who saw the miniseries as kids, the trauma is still real. For newer audiences, the films probably made them avoid storm drains for a while. But both versions hit the same nerve, that deep, personal part of us that still flinches in the dark. The makeup may change, but the terror, it stays the same. Every 27 years, like some twisted clockwork, Pennywise awakens. This pattern became one of IT's trademarks, and for good reason. The number 27 holds powerful symbolism. It's the amount of time it takes for a generation to forget the trauma, and for that same trauma to be reborn. It's a cycle of fear, silence, and neglect. And Derry, like a contaminated organism, repeats it without even realizing. The town forgets, covers it up, ignores it, until evil rises again, and the alien entity returns to feast on what never runs out, human fear. The timing is no accident. Kids are born, grow up, and reach that age where fear is most vivid, most real. Pennywise understands human development. He waits for that sweet spot where he can exploit childhood fragility, when imagination is wild and logic hasn't fully formed. So each new cycle brings fresh victims, new terrors, and more tragedy. But this pattern also works as a warning. If you understand the cycle, you can break it, you can stop it, you can, maybe, end the thing. The Losers Club figured that out. They realized that if they didn't break the cycle, it would continue. Pennywise would come back stronger, crueler, and no one else would be there to stop him. That urgency, that drive to end it once and for all, came from understanding that time is the real enemy. The creature has no rush. It can wait 27 years, 270, 2700. It doesn't age, it doesn't tire, it doesn't forget. But people do. We get weaker, we move on, we try to forget. That's why the losers knew. Either they face the nightmare now, or they'd just be postponing the inevitable and dooming the future. This 27-year cycle isn't just a plot device, it's a powerful metaphor. How many emotional cycles have you lived through? How many pains did you swear you'd already overcome, only to have them come back later, stronger, and in disguise? It reminds us that fear doesn't die on its own. It has to be faced. And time alone doesn't heal everything. If we ignore our traumas, they come back. And sometimes they come back with teeth, glowing yellow eyes, and a red balloon. So here's the real question. Are you paying attention to your own cycle, or are you just waiting for the next Pennywise to wake up? If you thought Pennywise was just Derry's problem, Think again. This creature showed up long before humans ever walked the earth, long before Earth even had complex life. In Stephen King's universe, Pennywise is one of the oldest entities in the macroverse, a dimension where primordial forces have existed since the beginning of time. The thing was here when there was no one around to be afraid of it. What did it do back then? Maybe it slept, maybe it watched, or maybe it just waited in the dark until fragile beings showed up, us. The idea that Pennywise predates humanity completely changes the game. He's not a product of our mistakes, he's not divine punishment. He simply is. A force of nature, as old as gravity or time itself. That gives him a mythological quality, a nightmare that's always existed, just waiting for minds evolved enough to feel fear. That's why his true form is indescribable. Our brains literally can't process what he really is. So all we ever see are interpretations, like the clown or the spider. This pre-human origin also makes the fear feel even more overwhelming. How do you fight something not only stronger than you, but older than everything you know? Pennywise carries pure chaos. He's the void, he's disorder, all things the rational mind can't handle. That's what makes him such an effective villain. He doesn't need a backstory, he doesn't need logic. The more we try to explain him, the more we realize he doesn't need to make sense. He's just there, like the darkness that's always been behind the door. This detail about his ancient existence is barely mentioned in the films, but it's incredibly powerful in the book. It reminds us that Pennywise isn't the end. He's just a piece of something much, much bigger. And if he's been here since before mankind, are we really alone? Or worse, are there other ancient beings out there, just like him, hiding, sleeping, waiting? This origin invites us to look deeper, to realize that fear isn't always born in the present. Sometimes it comes carrying shadows from the very beginning of time. As distant and impossible as Pennywise might seem, there's a real-world shadow behind him, and his name is John Wayne Gacy. This serial killer shocked America in the late 70s and early 80s, responsible for the deaths of at least 33 boys and young men. And the most chilling part? He used to dress as a clown for kids' parties and hospital visits under the name Pogo, a smiling, cheerful figure, hiding a monster under the makeup. Naturally, that sparked an idea in Stephen King. What if a clown became the face of fear? Gacy didn't have any supernatural powers, but what he did was even more disturbing. He earned children's trust, and then attacked. He used charm as a weapon. Pennywise does the same thing. He offers balloons. He calls from storm drains. He uses childlike voices. This similarity between a real killer and a fictional villain makes it even more unsettling, because it shows that real horror can wear a colorful costume, smile at you, and still be a threat. At that point, the line between fiction and reality, it gets blurry, very blurry. Stephen King has always had a gift for drawing inspiration from real life to amplify the emotional impact of his stories. And with Pennywise, that's crystal clear. By combining the cosmic horror of the macroverse with the everyday evil of a real-world killer, he created a creature that's both a symbol of internal fear and a reminder that evil is real, and it walks among us. The clown makeup only makes this worse. It covers, it hides, it distracts, and that's what makes Pennywise so disturbing. He represents the things the world chooses not to see until it's too late. The connection to John Wayne Gacy isn't just a creepy footnote, it's an uncomfortable reminder. Horror doesn't live only in books, movies, or other dimensions. Sometimes it's in the news, on your street, or in the past we all pretend to forget. Pennywise is terrifying because he combines all of it, the supernatural, the psychological, and the real. And that's why, even though he's an alien being with impossible powers, the part that hits the hardest is this. He might be inspired by something very human, something close, something real. After diving this deep into Pennywise's true origin, one thing becomes crystal clear. Fear can change shape, but it doesn't disappear on its own. It needs to be faced, named, confronted, and that applies to both a sewer-dwelling alien clown and the silent traumas we've carried since childhood. So let me ask you, what's your Pennywise? Is it a fear you avoid? A wound you never healed? Something that, just like the thing, goes quiet, but always comes back? The Losers Club's journey is really our journey, learning to look the things that haunt us in the eye and say, "You don't control me anymore." That's where the ritual begins, when we finally stop running. So now I want to know, what part of this story hit you the hardest? Have you ever faced a fear that felt unbeatable? Drop a comment and share your story. I'd love to know how IT connected to your experience. And hey, if this video helped you see Stephen King's universe in a new light, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell, because there's still a whole lot of dark, strange, and mind-bending content coming your way. After all, as Maturin once said, the universe is vast, and fear is even vaster.